Hello, and welcome to Talking Two Ways. I am your co-host Tyler, and with me is my co-host Al.
Hey, go Alec Nigaso. The translation is in Seneca. In English, it is, hello, I am thankful you are well. My name is Alec.
Talking Two Ways is a project that Al and I started to make a place for us to discuss Native American cultures, histories, and current events, as well as to give a voice to a population that deserves and needs it. Personally, is a place for me, a white guy approaching 30, to ask questions and listen to as many Native American perspectives as possible. As a talkative guy, I'm going to try to focus on that so that I am not the colonizer in the room. Al, how about you?
I want to do this project because I have grown up in a Seneca home, and a half white home. My mother is Seneca and my father is white, so I've grown up in both worlds, really not knowing about either. So I'd like to know more about my deeper heritage and share it with everyone else as I learn.
I think it's a great personal topic for you and me, because Al's father is my godfather, so I've always been over at his house and saw the reservation growing up, and it was kind of just a place that was a accepted part of my life. So now that I'm an adult, it's nice to explore the things that I didn't really understand about it and get a deeper understanding of what it means to live with another people like that, and what they went through.
I hope to understand it myself, because I've mostly grown up in my father's world with tidbits of my mother. But now that I'm on my own, and be able to learn it myself without, say, like a parent overshadowing or not so much controlling what I learn, but keeping an eye on what I learn and what I say. Now I can pick it for myself.
There's a power in that. I'm glad we're exploring it together. So I hope you enjoy our journey with this, and join us for the ride. Welcome to Talking Two Ways.
Welcome.
Hey everybody, Tyler here. We had a bit of a problem with the recording at the top, so there's about 5 minutes that is going to be missing. You didn't miss much, just us starting to get caught up on each other's week or month or how long ever it's been, since we don't get to record as often as we want. Thank you for listening.
I sure can.
All right, we are back. Hey, we did it.
Hello.
Recording stuff. Recording problems.
That's
You were
okay,
talking
we
about stuff?
live.
Were you talking about your dad? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we were talking about the psychology class, and I was just doing homework when Dad came over to drop off the kids, because him and the boys and Sonia went out for lunch or dinner or something. So I was doing homework. I had the nice, cozy living room
Kids
going
always
on.
eating.
Oh, I
always
know,
gotta
they
feed
need
them.
to eat. And it scares me sometimes, because Bentley can eat as much as I can, and then sometimes more. And I'm like, kid, you gotta slow, because he'll also eat it twice as fast as I do.
Yeah.
I'm like,
That's
boy,
a
kid,
patience thing. That's tough.
you gotta slow down. You finish as much mac and cheese and French fries as I did in half the time. You're gonna hurt yourself.
That's true. Yeah.
He's just like, okay, and then does it the same the next day. I don't know. I'm just going to keep
Doesn't
telling him
remember.
what to do, what he has to do, and one day he'll grip onto it.
Hopefully.
They were dropping him off. They were dropping him off, and I've never been told this. I was never questioned it when I was going through rehab. But did you know that in the first 6 weeks, when you are born, I think is the first 3 or 6 weeks, you're what is known as a neonate. And I told that to Dad, and we both looked at each other like, yes, of course. Neonate. Yes, this will be important when I figure out why I got addicted to heroin. Just like,
I mean,
were
yeah,
you
that's
you
why they
dropped as
call
a
it.
neonate?
That's why I call it the neonatal unit. And
Oh, is it?
yeah,
I had no idea that
or
was.
like if they talk about a premature baby, usually I think it's in
Oh,
a
okay.
neonatal unit, or
That
they
makes
could be
sense.
name of that unit. There's, I mean, multiple names. Call whatever they want. Baby unit, baby space.
Stuff like that, where I get taught it,
It's not
I have to
useful,
learn it. It's never going to be useful because
right?
I've never. I was dropped as a neonate. Oh man, if you were dropped as a neonate, you'd have a lot more problems than just heroin addiction.
I
But
mean, you might be surprised, man. You might go into some sort of like section of the field where you like focus with children who are like born addicted to drugs or something. I don't know. You never know.
that's
It's all
true.
interesting stuff.
That's something I've never encountered in IRL.
Me neither.
So, and I've never talked to anyone who was that. So I don't really have any experience on that to speak to. And we haven't talked about it in any of my classes so far. But yeah, now I'm down to 3 classes and everything's going well with them. Pre-registering for classes next semester, just getting my two more cores out of the way, and then my CRPA class, which I'll finally be able to learn what I'm going to be doing, as opposed to, because a lot of what they've been focusing on for the human services and addictions part of it is if I was going into a field where I'd need an 8-year degree and then be the actual counselor who sees 20 to 100 to who knows how many
A
people.
facility amount, yeah, of people, yeah.
Yeah, when that's not the role I'm going for. I'm going for the guy who comes in and has been a part of it and peer advocates for people in rehab. It just a much more comfy way of approaching someone rather than, because I've had counselors that have never been addicted. It's a lot easier to talk to someone who has gone through it and come to some kind of point of comfort or relaxing about the situation, our addiction, and realizing we're still people. We've gone through this thing. It's like people that have gone to war. They have a hard time. Not that saying that we've gone to war as addicted peoples. I'm saying like
It's a parallel,
yeah, a parallel. Veterans have a much easier time connecting to veterans.
right?
Same with addicts and such. So finally going to be
A
getting
shared
down to
experience.
that. Yes, the shared experience. I've been finally going to be able to get down to how I'm going to be able to use that to my advantage.
I mean, I know that's what you're like most excited about with it, which is I can't wait to hear some more stories. Honestly, it might be a little selfish, but it's pretty awesome to experience vicariously your story through this, and I mean, see how kind of not close, but how similar the education path you're kind of going through, like the different kind of classes you're going through, and a different perspective of different ways in which people function is both kind of something we're looking into, which is both something that we will eventually have studied, which I think is really cool.
I thought about that once because you were going for music therapy, and a lot of the things I was studying seemed like they'd fall right in line with what you had to go to college for.
I mean, especially to start, like, you know, anytime you're doing any bigger course, like you're gonna have a bunch of intro classes, and they're both like human studies. Yeah, they're both human sciences to a certain extent. I mean, not to a certain extent. They are both like music therapy is a human science, and I know that I'm fairly certain what you're going to. What is the course called?
CRPA, Human
Counseling.
Services.
Yeah, I mean that's basically the
Basically,
human science applied to human services.
yes, specifically with addicted peoples in my case. And it got me thinking because when I was in rehab, there was a rehab specifically um, that used music and the power of music to help people get through their addiction. I remember we went to an NA on the Seminole reservation. We went to a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, and there was when you see the buses, the vans coming from the different
Right.
rehabs, the little nickname is "Here comes the druggy buggy" because here we are. Woo! Uh,
You
um,
got to make light of it, or else it's too real.
Exactly. One of the buses was from this place where everyone who got off of the vehicle had guitars in their hands. And I
Nice.
was like, oh my God, that's
Yes.
awesome.
That's the rehab to go to. For you at least.
Why couldn't I sign up for that one?
Did they bring their guitars or did they all get one?
Right? I want a guitar. Oh man.
Did they play? Like, did they have their guitars for a reason, or were they just they were not allowed to leave our guitars anywhere?
No, they just brought them out and then realized they couldn't bring them into the NA meeting, so they put them all back on the bus.
They're just showing off. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, you guys are cool.
Put them away. That's awesome. Also, one of the smoothest segues we've had in a while. We got an episode. Today we're talking. We're focusing our research prowess and conversation skills to the Seminole tribe of Florida. This was your idea too.
They're hardcore, dude. They're mean, or the history of their tribe. They're fierce fighters.
That's quick overview of what I've seen. That's definitely the multi-sourced idea is they don't mess around.
No, they don't. Yeah, well, and then they get a significantly higher annuity than we do. So to paint a picture, they're fierce and they get more money. We get about $500 to $600 a month as a part of the annuity for being Seneca. They get closer to $5,000 a month.
Oh. Well, we might get into reasons why, but they own the Hard Rock.
Yes,
and
they do.
There's a whole bunch of other stuff. So I know that here in the Seneca tribe that the part of that funding is how well the Seneca casinos do.
Oh yeah, it is.
Or how many are functioning at any given time.
During COVID times, we had to drop the annuity from $750 a month all the way down to $500.
Ooh.
It was because COVID knocked out the casinos.
Yeah.
And
is that looking to go back up, or is that's something that might they might have to fight to get that to go back up?
They're gonna have to fight to get that to go back up because of what recently was going on with the state coming after them about gambling laws or the gambling agreement between the nation and New York State.
Right. And
it's going to be a fight to get back. Yeah.
Banking was blocked. That was a topic I believe we brought up a little bit, and we might have to readdress it in some other episode. But first, I actually wanted to ask why was this tribe? This was your topic of choice. What was the? I mean, obviously you said that they're pretty hardcore, warriors, which is pretty awesome, and I like learning about that. But what made you interested in learning about this tribe?
Just when I went and when I was in rehab, we went to the Seminole NA meeting at their VFW, which their reservation it's a lot different than ours. Ours, you see trailers a lot. You see some nice houses. Where their VFW was, it was I thought it was an empty parking lot. No, it was probably a square half mile to a square mile of land of a bunch of. Have you ever gone to a camping site and you see the electric outlets on a wooden 4x4 and you can plug in your trailer to that?
Yeah.
Or it was like that. It was nothing but a sea of electric plugins.
Oh wow! Because everyone just comes in an RV or something.
That's where they used to live, is in their RVs or in their trailers, and that's where their electricity would come from, was from that electric post. And there was not a single one there. They have better houses elsewhere, plus because of the Hard Rock.
So they had an influx of money and were able to move people out of those areas and just got rid of the trailers, but the electric poles are still there.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, you got to go
That's
through a
cool.
gate and everything.
I mean, they're hopefully gonna do something with that area, but that's, I mean, interesting and cool that they kind of worked to get their people out of trailers. Which, I mean, hell, you've lived in trailers. I don't think I've lived in a trailer, but I've had family members that have lived in trailers. They can be very, very nice houses.
They can be cozy,
There's no
man.
knocking it.
Oh yeah, there's some trailers where you're like, all right, this is kind of cheap. But I've been in a trailer. My buddy Poncho, his grandparents lived in a trailer, and you would never even tell. It was a double wide, but you would never even know that. Oh yeah, this was built as a trailer. It was a nice house. It was comfy. The inside, the kitchen was nice size. The living room connected to the kitchen. It was good.
There's a lot people can do with a small space, but so was it just that they impressed you with that sort of like change, or?
Yeah, it was that change that impressed me. It was knowing that they owned the Hard Rock that impressed me. Seeing a couple of them at different AA or NA meetings during my stay in Florida was awesome. I shared the story at one of the NA meeting that was at the VFW. In that sea of electric posts, there was still one building, and it was the VFW. It was where all the NA community meetings were held, and the NA one, is where I got my book. It's where I got my 30-day chip. I have no idea where that is anymore. And I remember when I told my story about how I want to be a better father and what I've done, and I kind of started the story with I am a Seneca from so on and so forth, and just the reaction of who cares? Like no one said anything, and I just got this vibe of yeah, well, we're all just trying to. It humbled me to like this is this is crazy that this tribe has gotten themselves away from this, from essentially out of poverty. Because there's still plenty of people here that do that, but there it looks like nope, we cleared out the lot. Everyone's got their nice houses now. If you need a job, it's at the Hard Rock. If you don't need a job, you're still gonna get your annuity. And for the longest time, I don't remember where I read this, but colonists had a hard time getting through to them, or not like getting through to them, but trying to conquer them. They had a hard time doing that because
they
of
didn't.
their reputation.
Yeah, as far as the Seminole Tribe of Florida websites and various like resources from the tribe that I had seen, there's a lot of quotes that have something to do like the Unconquered Seminole Tribe of Florida. Like there's a lot of history that I'm surprised to have not heard of like basically wars that have happened inside of our country that is kind of just glossed over, of just like development of the United States. We had some conflicts. There was some stuff happening. There was a lot of moving around of native tribes, but the United States was development. All right, now we're moving on to World War I. Like there was like at least 4 wars, like 3 Seminole Wars, the first, second, and third Seminole Wars in Florida, in and around the South, of various different conflicts. Basically, just the remaining people of the Seminole tribes after they were, well, through various conflicts, when they were trying to be removed through various means, the people who remained either hidden in the swamps or just straight up in the open, determined to keep their land, keep their heritage, their independence. They just stayed and they kept fighting, and they kept like fighting literal battles, and then eventually moved to what now seems to be just like all legal battles. They've moved to the courtroom, in a very interesting timeline that I was very interested to kind of look into and get to research. Good choice, honestly.
Awesome. Real quick, when I gotta go and check on Sierra because she's not up yet. It's 10:24. She has work at 11. I'll be right back. And
Yeah,
then,
go check on her.
Straight into your stories.
And we'll
Sorry.
be right back. Pew, 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 pew.
All right, I am back.
Al is back.
Turns out she was up for 20 minutes, and she, in fact, snuck behind me and made a funny face, according to her.
And it was just for her?
Oh, yeah. She made a funny face. She came in, grabbed her scrubs for work, and because I had the headset on, I can't hear what's going on around me. She said, yeah, no, I've been in there twice in the past 20 minutes. Oh,
You're a good husband, Al.
I try.
And still focused on your activities. I love it. Well, hey, honestly, actually, before we get into it, because I wanted to bring in our kind of our tradition of having a traditional welcoming. There is a traditional Seminole welcoming called. It is pronounced as such, Chihantamo.
Chihantamo.
CHEHUNTAMO. Chihantamo.
Chihantamo.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It's just the traditional welcome.
Oh, okay.
Just
Scano.
yes, similar to that. So I thought that was cool. I wanted to include that. The Seminole tribe is home in the Everglades of Florida. I went back, fairly far, earlier than like the 1700s. There's a lot of different records and experiences that have been recorded from outside the tribe, because there isn't all that much written history from most Native American tribes across the Americas. Most of these tribes are oral history, spoken word histories. So not until, quote unquote, recent history have those things kind of been written down, or even just kind of recorded in hindsight by colonizers in sometimes racist origins, because I think I explained that example before. I've read a couple of books where these barbarians are going to be dying away and going away because we're clearly superior and the ones that are going to be surviving, so we have to record their society for history's sake, because they're not going to be here. And that's just a scary way to think as a society. I'm glad we're nowhere near that anymore.
The American savage survived.
That was sarcasm, by the way, too. Yeah, no, they did.
Yes,
That's one of the that's one of why it's not funny, but it's an ironic funny reading people talk so sincerely like that now, of just like, oh, you are such an old thinker, and it's so stupid. Anyway, moving on. But I did a bit of research. They are descendants of various ancient tribes, which is honestly a similar trend I've seen across most tribes in the United States. Most, especially like the Seneca tribes and the Iroquois Confederacy. Those come from a previous tribe that was either conquered or assimilated, and it's the same sort of situation just down south. There was a couple of names I found. There was such as the Lamar people, that eventually became the major tribe. That name that I found was the Creek people. I saw a bit of evidence that saw that these tribes, because they're all intermingling and morphing and shifting and moving around, and having different settlements and interacting and intermarrying and stuff anyway, like through the entire history. So I saw that there was some evidence that the Seminole tribe and the Creek people have some relations to the Cherokee people. So I did find a Cherokee story in my Healers of the Mountain book to share in a little bit. But
oh, cool.
Yeah, I wanted to get a little bit more in just like the history of how, what movement happened here. So the Creek people were in what I saw, geographically speaking, was a little bit north of Florida. They didn't originate there. Basically, like southern Georgia, the Carolinas, even like Mississippi, that sort of area. And then just through the process of assimilation of multiple tribes and multiple wars with the original settlers, the Spanish settlers in that area, like basically once they started encountering the Spanish for the first time, they're like, oh, okay, that's a reason to band together, which is a flavor of history that has repeated itself in time and time again. Once there's a common enemy, people will unite. Once there was kind of just more conflict with these settlers, and then the English colonies started becoming, not just, oh, hey, there's more white people. Oh, there's more towns. Okay, there's a lot more. Okay, they're a thing here. Then there was a lot of resettlement and movement of people and various wars where only roughly 300 Seminole people remained. And they moved south into the Florida swamps, determined to keep their independence and heritage, which I had mentioned earlier. A couple of older tribe names that I had heard that were like assimilated into with the Creek people and became what was known as the Seminole people. And I'm gonna, obviously butcher this to a certain extent while trying my hardest to not butcher any of them. The Apache-Chicola, the Apalachicola.
How do you spell it?
A-P-A-L-A, a lot of A's right off the bat, C-H-I-C-O-L-A. So it ends with cola.
Apalachicola?
It looks like an Apalachicola, which the Appalachian Mountains, span quite a fair distance of the eastern side of the United States. So that would make sense that the naming convention would travel at least a certain bit.
It could be a butchering of the pronunciation, or it could be actually what it's called. I've ran into a couple of people who come from, and no joke, this is the Hullawasaponi tribe.
There's a lot of different names and consonants.
It made me. I was like, "What?"
Yeah, there is currently an Apalachicola. There we go, third time charm. City in Florida. So yeah, it's still a thing. There is also Yamasi, Tawasa, Yuchi, Michikosi people, the Muskogee people, and the Calusa people, as well as others. Like I said, the United States, or the area that became the United States, was a melting pot of Native American tribes well before it became the melting pot that we were kind of all taught in public school.
Oh yeah, the melting pot of the world, except for you and you and you and you and you.
Right? Except it already was, and we were already a melting pot, and that's just cool. Anyway, I touched on this a bit, but it's basically the Seminole tribe is the culmination of ancient tribes from around the southeast area, modern-day Georgia, Alabama, Florida, etc. These people interacted with the original Spanish traders and invaders, and were some of the first people on the continent to be affected by diseases, but still traded with their new neighbors. And eventually the Creek tribe migrated south into what is now the Florida era in the 1700s, before 1750, basically. It was one of the set kind of, by 1750, there is evidence of the Seminole tribe as being established and functioning. And I saw a couple of different resources that said that, especially when the Spanish came in, that they were not pressured, but just economically pressured, I guess, to become cattlemen, because there were cattle in the South. I mean,
the Spaniards or the Seminole?
The Seminole. The Seminole did none of the pressuring, other than trying to kill a couple of them after they were, invaded and harassed and treated terribly. Right. Yeah, no, they just kind of, hey, these people were willing to trade. They have a superior technology, and we can trade with them. And they want cattle, so we can give them cattle. I saw this one not cool, but an interesting fact that the original Spanish traders had the word that I'm also going to butcher because languages. And English is just a bad language to start off with when learning languages. And Cimarrones, Cimarro with the dash on it, Nes, Cimarrones. It is the Spanish word for runaways or wild ones, which is kind of maybe where Seminole tribe comes from.
I'll take it. That's a badge I'll wear. Wild ones, we'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, and that far back, the language there would be interacting and blending to a certain point where, yeah.
Blend in with the trees.
Blend in with the language.
Heck
So
yeah, dead down in the swamp. Heck yeah.
So every resource I saw, I mean, all of them pointed to the Seminole Wars, and I'll include a couple of links there. There's a lot of resources about it, but a lot of them point to the idea that the native people basically had to wage war on a technologically superior enemy for over 40 years for the right to live where they have lived for generations. And in some cases, the campaigns left then 300 of those tribes alive, which they eventually moved down south, or relocated down south.
Was it 40 years before the relocation, or was the relocation going on as the 40 years? Because 40 years...
All of it. There was just relocation throughout all of it, and they're just the people who refused to leave and be pressured and to take crappy gifts and to sign shitty treaties and to just straight up pressured into leave. They just decided, no, we're going to fight for our fucking home. This is where we live. This is where our people have been. This is our place. GTFO. And honestly, they succeeded. I mean, they're still alive. They're still here. There was, towards the end of the Great Depression era, so we're jumping a bit of time here, but basically throughout all of that time is just a bit of war and then a bit of calm, and then a bit of war and a bit of calm, and just constant, like with the United States government, there's constantly fighting. And around the end of the Great Depression, via the Indian Department, which I think we've talked about before, was an actual department in the United States government.
It's still there. It's the IAs.
Yep.
What is it?
They just changed the name. Indian Affairs.
Bureau of Indian Affairs. Yeah,
Yep.
That's what it's called.
And throughout, a couple of the books that I've read, and I might have mentioned before, various Indian agents, that's what they were called, agents tasked to see the tribe's needs while also moving them to undesirable locations. I've read a couple of different stories, even ones that happened here in Seneca, with the Seneca tribe, of these agents coming in and either utilizing the language barrier or utilizing just straight up trickery or lies, or just the fact that they can bully these what are seen as inferior people to sign treaties that say, all right, now we're going to get all your land and you get to live in this small area and all your resources are ours and yada yada, or you're just going to get out, in just kind of the shittiest ways. And it was kind of nuts that one of the common trends was that they would ply them with alcohol.
Yep.
Like as a society, Native American tribes didn't really have alcohol.
Alcohol really wasn't a thing until the colonists showed up. The meme, the fire water.
Yeah.
Until that showed up, that's what was used to trick a lot of our chieftains and people higher ups to move so willingly.
Yeah. Like the one loose story is like, oh, here, drink this out. Doesn't it feel silly? Oh, here, this is a pen. Here, take this paper. Because every oral tradition, pen and paper, ink and writing isn't necessarily a thing. It's all verbal agreements and ritual tradition to show and honestly, like marriage, to show the agreements that are going to be respected. And the fact that, respect the agreements throughout passage of time, but plying with alcohol, you get them to sign a piece of paper, tell them, hey, this is your name, write your name down. Now you've signed this thing, now you've signed your tribe away. And sometimes it was a little more insidious than that. Sometimes they just had just a good argument. Just like, hey, we're going to be developing here. We've got a bigger army. Our army needs to train somewhere. If you don't leave, that's not a good argument. That's just straight up bullying. But sometimes it was just like, hey, we need these resources. We've got more people coming in. This area is gonna be bad. If you take this steel, we'll give you money to move out. And they take it and move out. And sometimes they get an okay area. most of the time, not so much.
Have you ever heard the one of the classic Seneca one?
I might have.
So
Shoot.
something that was like said as a quote unquote joke to me while I was all through high school. If me and a buddy of mine were having some sort of disagreement, or me and someone else were having some sort of disagreement, and we were just like, not like a physical one, but a debate,
Right.
and not even heated, just a debate about something. It was often quoted that, well, you guys traded your land for a bunch of clamshells, so obviously my argument is better. Or say it was at a party, it was like, hey, that's the last beer. No, that's my beer. It's the last beer. Well, you traded your land for a bunch of clamshells, so I don't want to hear it. And stuff like that. It was something about the Seneca tribe. The colonists juiced them up and then said that we traded our land for a bunch of it was like New York specifically, a bunch of not turquoise, but the purple that you see on the Haudenosaunee flag was a shell that you could find around here and turn it into different pieces of your regalia, and it just, you traded your land for this much. So I get it. I get what you're talking about.
Oh, this is the Manhattan sold for like $24 worth of bead and trinkets.
That's the one.
Ah, okay.
That's the one.
Oh, the first article that I see pops up is like, is it true? It's just like just an article like saying if it's true and just basically going through what it is, what the story is.
Did it really happen? I'm not sure, but these people I thought were my friends won't shut up about it because I want the last beer. Stuff like that. Oh man, didn't mean to derail you. Just that's what immediately popped up when you started talking about the colonists trying to
use alcohol to get them there.
Yeah, because they did that, unfortunately, very effectively. Because alcohol was never a thing before they showed up.
And it's an insidious way to do business, and it was kind of like known. Like as soon as it was understood, like, oh, okay, that as a culture, as a whole, as various cultures, they don't have any ways socially of reacting to alcohol. So I don't know. It's just, again, almost that sort of like technologically advanced thing. You just throw something that your society has had for a while at someone who's never experienced it. It's going to blow their mind. I've been watching this anime. I think I've told you about it. It's called Dr. Stone.
I've seen that.
Okay.
Not the whole thing, but like commercials and clips of it.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, where there's just using science to sort of bring back technology from a world after thousands of years of just basically humanity put on pause, but whatever. But it's been interesting to see like a point of view of someone who's never seen like a battery to like, oh, hey, I made a battery with science, and it does this, and it blows their mind, and they can't even understand it, and that is so strange to hear about such a not a recent history, but relevantly recent in our history that is the case. Around the 1950s, there was a legislation passed that pushed to have the reservations removed, and the Seminole tribe fought back and basically created their own government to do so. So, oh, okay, like we need to have our own government. You have your own rules, and saying, oh, you can't fight us unless you have your own. We have your own people to go do so, and have your own government. Okay, then bam, here's our own government. We made it. We did it. We signed. They signed at the Council Oak, which was a giant ass oak tree, which still stands today and is an important memorial site for the Seminole tribe as a whole. And I'm not sure which reservation that one is at, but I did find that the current reservations are Hollywood, which was formerly
That's the one we
Dania?
went to.
Nice. Big Cypress, Brighton, Fort Pierce, gonna pronounce this one wrong, Immokalee, Immokalee, and Tampa. So, here was something I just written down because I just had this sort of thought. The tribe's website has an intro that provided a lot of information, but also used wording and presented the mindset that the quote-unquote, I'm using quotes here, war against invaders has been continuing for years, rightly so, and has moved from the war of the battlefield to the courtroom, which I had also mentioned earlier. The tribe has its own court, laws, schools, police, and maintains its own traditions. And we had talked about before, it is the owner of the Hard Rock Hotel and Casinos, which is the major source of income for the people as a whole. Which, again, that's another trend that we've seen all across the United States. Just because of the way the United States developed its laws and all these various people who have suffered simply just because of it. Yes, because there was direct action against them, but not even because of all of that collective direct action, but even just because of the circumstances that the United States just sort of created by blossoming and growing and manifest destiny all over the place.
That's very common. Like the meme with a lot of the memes on Native American TikToks or like that. There's 3 ways that we make money. It's gas, cigarettes, and casinos. That is true. Like there's a ton of gas stations and dispensaries now on our reservation.
All for tax purposes. Even the casinos. All of it is like, it's easier for a Native American tribe to create a casino, even with the expense to make a current highfalutin fancy casino because of the tax purposes, because of the tax implications, because they can't be taxed because they're technically not part of the U.S. government or the U.S. Country. So like, it's wow. Ugh, everything that you've got going for you is just because the U.S. is still deciding to respect the treaties and not tax you, which they could probably try to find some legal loophole to not do that anymore. Hopefully not, because that would be awful. But I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about that? Like, I don't know if we've ever really talked about it, but does that make you feel anything?
No, not really. It doesn't bother me. I am very happy with being able to. We're part of a very interesting land and people. We have these sectors out. Sure, it was a lot larger in the whole of the U.S. way back in the day before it was even the U.S. We had all that, but it's just kind of like home. As far as the tax, we're just doing what we have to in today's society to make a living and do it in a way that we see fit rather than the way someone else sees fit. Yes, of course, there's the U.S. and their entire overhead over everything, but it's not like we can pull out all our M4s and our M16s and go to war like we would be able to way back in the day. We would get utterly crushed. And
Anybody would. I mean,
then
that's honestly like the everyone's. And if anyone starts just picking up guns and fighting each other, everyone gets destroyed. That's kind of what the history of war and even current situations in war is kind of showing me. I mean, obviously there's going to be skirmishes and in group and fighting between groups and stuff, but I don't know. It never works or never does anything on a larger scale other than destruction.
yeah, no, violence only procreates more violence. So if that's not the route that people are taking anymore, like I was interested and I Googled it. Why don't we take nations anymore? Well, because this, and the UN is just annexing countries because of what's going on in Ukraine. I'm like, what? How come it's been like years since someone's tried to do that? Well, and so on and so forth. But since we're not going to be even looking at that route, we might as well, in the position that we're in, do what we have to do to make sure that we're comfortable and we can continue to thrive in today's society. And the presence of that being felt over these different reservations, and this leads into my next thing about it was the same thing on the Akwesasne reservation. But I learned it was only an hour. I thought it was 3 hours. It's only 1 hour away from me. It's like driving to Buffalo to get to this reservation, and it's basically the one road, Route 37, and right in the center of their reservation, they have a casino. And other than that, there's gas stations, and of course, in the gas station, there's cigarettes. But along this one road, maybe like a 10-minute drive from one end of the res to where we were. I think it's the other end of the res, but we could have gone a little further. 15 to 25 different dispensaries. I was like, oh my God, it's just like home.
Oh, was it all on the same road?
It was all on the same road. Yeah, it's all on the one road.
I've seen that in Canada too. Jess and I drive over to Canada, and I mean, and we can't take stuff over, obviously, so we got to go over there and find a dispensary and get like a couple of pre-rolls or whatever. But we just we got to find driving around a different town, and then like there's 4 on the same road in the same area. Like, oh, there's one other one around the corner, and we actually I looked it up later, and there are a couple of different rules about like literally where these different dispensaries, at least in Canada, where these dispensaries can be, and they can't be spread out and all over town like all the McDonald's in town. There's still like have to be. So there's literally like 4 different stores that all sell marijuana. Only that within like a 2-minute walk of each other. And they are all and they're all thriving. They're all doing great. They're fine. They have no lack of customer base.
Exactly. I mean, did the names get you at all? Because some of the names of these places, I was dying.
Hit me.
Butters.
What?
Cannabis Island.
Wait. Hold on, slowly, please. I'm sorry. Wait, no. You hit me off with a doozy. Wait, why did they say Butters? Did they have like edibles or like?
Oh yeah.
Okay. They made Butters.
Budders. Butters.
Oh, I completely missed it. Oy vey. Okay, continue.
Cannabis Island. The Dank Bank, which
No!
It was a flag with like the most basic symbol for a bank you could see, and then behind that it was a pot leaf, and it was called the Dank Bank.
So there's a store. It's not a dispensary, but it's called Her Seed Bank. They hosted a growing seminar that I went to that was very nice, and actually got like free seeds, which was really cool. It was like $40 seed for like 3 seeds, and they just were handing out packs of them. But it's called Her Seed Bank, and it's just like a local hydroponics and seed dispensary. Because I guess seed bank is a common thing, but weed bank, that's way vey. What was the? Oh, I can't remember. One I can't remember the name of it, but it was just like the color scheme was yellow and black, like it was heavy on the yellow. So it's the entire inside of the building and the front facade was just school bus yellow, and this poor dude had to just sit in that building all day with that obnoxious yellow in his face the whole day. Nice guy though. He had some nice comments and knew his stuff. Anyway.
Oh man, that the yellow all day long.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's kind of like a continuation of what we've been seeing of like throughout history. Like before the casinos, it was always gasoline and cigarettes. I'm not sure which one's first. Probably it's tobacco. Tobacco was first, then gasoline, and then the casinos, and now marijuana it shows a continuing trend of the various Native American tribes being flexible and adjusting to their conditions to survive. And I mean, if not just survive, to thrive. Like from what you've described from your personal experience, it sounds like, not to put this badly, but like, you know, we've both kind of seen the state of some of the small towns around where the Seneca Nation is. You know, there are always things in the work for improvement, and there are people who are actively working to make the nation not just function, but to be better. Your mom being one of them. But there are some rundown areas near the nation and within the nation that are suffering. That have people that are suffering, and that's why that sort of thing is happening. So it's cool to see that that's not just the case everywhere, because there's always, I mean, they're not always talked about, but there are always stories out there of different reservations that are just struggling and full of people who are suffering, just because they are basically forgotten. They're in a system, not the reservation, but like they're in a larger system that their reservation was within, that has put entire people in a situation where they can't thrive. And I chuckle out of almost anxiety, because that is such a scary thing to think of.
Isn't it? Especially like because they're still doing that nowadays. There's still poverty, and not all your walls have drywall, and sometimes your bedroom door is a blanket because you can't afford a door because of the situation that you've been put in, and you just gotta knock on the blanket. It's called flat, flat, flat.
Oh
Hey,
my
is
God.
anyone there? Oh my God, that's a running joke in my family because we had to do that one time.
Really?
And I've seen it in other places. Where it was just a blanket for the door, flat, flat, flat. You knock on the flat.
Knock on the wow. Hey, that's also, we've touched on the Native American humor, how that's like, it really does lean into it. Honestly, that's been your flavor of humor our entire life.
We do what we gotta do. Sometimes you gotta lock the door with cinder blocks. Doesn't always work, but it'll keep the squirrels and the dogs out at least.
Wow, yeah. You gotta do what you gotta do. Say, hey, you know what? I got one word for you. Traps. If you gotta do what you gotta do, there's traps.
Damn straight.
All right. Well, anyway, I got the story to tell more. But is there anything else that you wanted to talk about your experience down in Florida, or with that tribe, or with the people of that tribe?
It just felt very, very much like home. Like going to the Akwesasne Reservation. As soon as you were on there, it felt like home. Not that I don't feel at home in my own house, but there's something about it where you're like, I can let my guard down now.
The mentality was there.
Yeah.
The safe space.
Yeah. And it feels like that. It felt like that on the Mohawk Reservation. It felt like that when we were going into the Seminole Reservation, and especially when we went to the NA meetings. There was this one guy who did a demonstration. It just felt very well thought out, because he started it with about how there's this image that people try to keep up, and it's impossible to keep that image up all the time, and you want to be everything for everyone, and you're afraid people are going to judge you because of what you're doing or the way you look. And especially the way you look, he was really leaning into that side of it. And the way he demonstrated it was he had a big old beard, and he started talking about his experience, and started talking about how it doesn't really matter what's on the outside, it's on the inside. Sure, the outside can be important, but an asshole's an asshole no matter how they look. And throughout his explanation of not worrying about what's on the outside, your beauty will fade, your blah 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 this, he would shave his beard halfway through and then keep going, and then he'd shave the rest of his beard all the way off in the middle of this presentation. And by the end of it, he may have looked like an entirely different person, but the message was still the same, and who he was on the inside, and how he presented himself, and the way he would talk to people was still the same, no matter how you looked. And I just thought that was awesome, that the way he explained it. And then that there was another Native American with a beard, and I was like, heck yeah, let's go. Because that's another common thing is like, we know you're half-blood because you have a beard.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Huh. I never thought of that.
Oh yeah. Yep. A lot of quote unquote pure people with two native parents generally don't have facial hair or chest hair, or other kinds of hair besides on their head. It's one of the a really a dead giveaway, but it was really cool the way he presented all that. Aside from the oh hey half breed, just like me. But yeah, no, that was really cool. It just felt like home. It made recovering a lot easier.
That's a cool story.
Thank you.
I like that.
Now it's over.
Huh. And now it's over. Well, I mean, I kind of rolling off that. I've got a story to tell too. This is from the Healers on the Mountain and Other Myths of Native American Medicine. This is in the Dreams and Medicine section. This is a Cherokee story. It is called Uktena. 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 Might be pronouncing that wrong. I'm going to do the best. There are a couple of, I guess what I would describe as old Native American words that I may pronounce awfully, but it's a quick, short story and might not exactly have a meaning, but I thought it was interesting nonetheless. Here we go. Long ago, the old ones tell of Hilahishu. Hilahiu. When the earth was just here, Sun became angry at the disrespectful people on earth and sent a horrible sickness to destroy them. Little men, capitalized, of the earth, the people, changed a man into a monster snake, which they called Uktena, also known as the spirit, keen-eyed. Uktena was sent to kill Sun. Uktena failed. Then little men sent rattlesnake spirit to kill Sun. Uktena became jealous and vicious to the little men. Little men grew afraid and took their powers, sending Uktena up to Galionliti, the place of the dangerous things. Uktena left others behind that were as dangerous as he was. He had them hide in deep pools in the river or in the lonely passes of the high mountains. These became known as the snake spirits that keep people. Those who knew of Uktena knew him as a great snake, wide as a tree trunk, with horns on his head and a bright blazing crest like a shining diamond on his forehead. His scales glitter like sparks of fire. He has rings and spots of color along his whole length and cannot be wounded except by shooting in the 7th spot from the head, because it is here that his heart and life spirit hide. The shining diamond is referred to as the Ulunshuti, Ulunsu apostrophe Ti, Ulunshuti, and whoever owns this is sure to have success in hunting, healing, growing, and every part in human business. Healers use it in their work. Uktana came to the people with the help of 2 brothers. They were hunting together, and when they came to a camping place in the mountains, they made a fire. One gathered wood to put up a shelter, and the other went up the creek to look for a deer. The one who was hunting heard a noise, like 2 animals fighting, on the top of the ridge. He hurried to see what it might be, and there he found the great Uktana coiled around a man. ASMR page turn. Uktana was choking the man. The man was fighting for his life and called out to the hunter, "Help me. He is your enemy as well as mine." The hunter took aim, drew back his arrow to the head of Uktana and shot. It went through the body, and blood sprouted from the hole. The snake loosed its coils with a snapping noise that went tumbling down the ridge. Tearing up the earth as he fell. The stranger stood up, and it was the great, pronounce this right, Tylor, Asgai Gai, the red man of lightning. He said to the hunter, You have helped me, and now I will reward you. I shall give you a medicine that will help you always find game." They waited until the day was night, and then went down the ridge where the dead Uktana had rolled. The birds and insects had now eaten the body, and all was left were the bones. In one place were flashes of light coming up from the ground. Flashes of light moved in the darkness. Red Man of Lightning took the light and showed it to the hunter. It was a scale of Uktana. Red Man of Lightning went over to a tree that had been struck by lightning and gathered splinters. Then he made a fire and burned Uktana's scale to a coal. He wrapped this in a piece of deerskin and gave it to the hunter, saying, "As long as you have this, you will always find game to hunt and food for your family. You will never know hunger." Red Man of Lightning told the hunter to go back to camp and hang up the medicine on the tree outside, because it was very strong and dangerous. He told him he would find his brother nearly dead in the cabin. This would be caused by the power of Uktana's scale. The hunter must then take a small piece of cane, which the Red Man of Lightning gave him, scrape a little of it into water, and give it to his brother to drink. This would make his brother well again. Then the Red Man of Lightning disappeared. The hunter could not see where he went. He returned to his camp and found his brother gasping for life. The hunter did as he was taught, and his brother was cured with the cane water. This healing was never forgotten, and the power of Uktana's scale and cane became part of the Cherokee way. The end.
So wait, where did this is part the Seminole and Cherokee connection?
So what I'd seen is that the people that eventually became the Seminole people, also tribes moving and migrating and splitting and sharing stories. The Cherokee tribe might also share this story to a certain extent.
Whoa. I went into little kid mode. I'm like, tell me more. Come on, do it again. What's the next story? I guess
Actually, there is another one.
I'm like, whoa. Okay, go ahead.
This is one. It's even shorter. It's like half a page, but it's another Cherokee one. I'm gonna try to pronounce the name right. Is the name of the story and the name of the individual, I believe. Dasi Giyagi. Giya. Dasi Giyagi. DASI GIYAGI. Dasi Giyagi. Dasi Giyagi was a famous Cherokee warrior. His friend knew him as Shoe Boots, and he once lived on Hightower Creek in Georgia. He could change shape and take on the power of many. Some saw him throw a corn matete, or mortar, over a house. He was known for leaping wide rivers that were deep and dangerous. It was said that his medicine power was from Uktana's scale, and a large turtle shell that he traded from the Shawano people. Shoe Boots fought in the Creek War using his medicine magic. He put Uktana's scale into the water and bathed his body. He took a turtle shell and drew a black line around his men with coal. He never was wounded, and none of his men were killed. Shoe Boots brought back the belief in medicine, which aided many. Some warriors could dive under the ground as if were water, come up to the center of an enemy camp to kill and scalp their foes, and then dive back under the ground, returning to their own camp. So
Whoa.
hey, I didn't even reread that one, but I'm glad I did, because that kind of connects back to the various Creek Wars that we talked about. Because again, the people mixing and melding and interacting beforehand would have had wars.
They were earthbenders.
Yeah, too. That's the cool kind of story of like that kind of
That was
description.
cool.
Like that's a cool like. Honestly, I don't. You've seen One Piece, right?
Yeah.
There's a devil fruit power that does that sort of stuff that reminds me of. Like, that's cool. That's how old is that story? How like from hundreds of years ago, and it's kind of like an anime that we know of. That's rocking.
Oh, it's like what's his Lemillion from My Hero Academia, where he can permeate through all the objects.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Like that's
Oh man.
people are so freaking interesting. Anyway, I'm glad I shared those stories, but I don't know. What did you think of them? Do you want to react at all anymore?
Oh, they were good. I gotta be honest, the gummy's starting to kick in because I
Hey,
took it
good for
around
you.
like 9:45.
No, no
And
worries.
then
Again,
we were gonna.
I wasn't looking for anything. I was just curious if you had any sort of reaction, because those are the kind of stories that honestly are probably pretty good after having a gummy kick in, because they're one of those older kind of stories that, like, I mean, might be before the idea of plot was real, and it might have been retold and told and told so many times that it might have lost a bit of its meaning, or might have gained more meaning than it could even thought of. But yeah, a couple of the stories that are from the origin of our country, the origin of the area that we call our country. So I like these things. I think it's pretty cool. I'm just getting into the myths section, so I will be exploring those a little bit, and we can kind of get into the traditional ideology and mythology.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Listening to that while the gummy was kicking in was like watching a documentary in my head. And then the documentary is like, what did you think? And I go, it's
Oh man,
cool.
there's some pictures. Oh yeah, there are some like pictures in this next section. There's like lizard people in this one. There's like hands sculpting a scenery. There's some creator shit in this. I love it. What is that? Okay, that might be a trickster or something or else. But anyway, we are gonna call that lady is naked. All right, cool.
Ooh.
I hope everyone has enjoyed this somewhat rambling presentation on our various research abilities on the Seminole tribe. I think it's a really interesting nation. I thought it was a really cool topic, Al. Thanks for choosing it.
You're welcome, man. They're cool. The Seminole, they don't fuck around.
Absolutely. That's the one consensus that I think we can all take from it. Honestly, I usually take that from like any tribe that I look into. Like, oh, okay, so like, they're still here because they don't fuck around. Really, that can almost be said about almost any kind of people. But yeah, it was really interesting. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you had a great time, and we'll be back with Talking Two Ways.
Me too. And then you will. And then it'll be 2 ways.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Skongay.
Skongay, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Talking Two Ways podcast. Al and I really appreciate your time. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in a review on whatever platform you found us on. Any review would be a major talking point, and we would really appreciate it. If you have tattoos and are into quality aftercare products, check out Lucky 13 Tattoo Aftercare. They make natural balms and cleansers that are cruelty-free, vegan, and really make colors and blacks stand out in the best way possible. If you want to see for yourself, check out protectyourink.com and use the discount code TALLNESS300 for 25% off everything on the site. Thanks for listening.
Hey,